Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. I have a quick alterations job today. Well, at least I hope it's a quick one. I have a customer that's come in and what she wants me to do is shorten the sleeves on her shirts or her blouses. The sleeves are quite long on these. So what I need to do is shorten these sleeves by a full cuff length and reattach the cuff as well. Hang around and I'll show you how I go about doing this. I've quoted her about an hour for each shirt, but I think I'll get it done in much less time than that. Now, fortunately, the customer is happy for me to leave this exactly as it is, and I don't need to go and extend the placket or make a new one. The cuff on this shirt is going to come up to the position of this button here. I'm going to remove the cuff and reposition that up here. I can get rid of the button and the buttonhole, and then she's still got a small section of her placket here as well. But as I said, I don't have to do anything with that. So that saves me some time, thankfully. I don't actually like doing this as a job, but you know, it's my job. So the first thing I'm going to do is unpick this from the main sleeve, and then I'm going to measure that and cut it back. And I won't need this button, that's just going to be in my way. And I do have to remember to put my timer on. So jobs like this, I put the clock on and charge the customer accordingly. So all I do is put the stopwatch on my phone, and whenever I get interruptions, I'll usually start and stop the clock. There's such tiny stitches on this. So when I get to the end, I'm just going to carefully unpick the rest of those stitches, and then I've separated the sleeve from the cuff. Something you want to keep in mind when you're working with sleeves like this is making sure you remember which is the back and front, or the left and right of everything. So I'm lucky that this has got a blue interior, so I know that it's going to go on a specific way, and I am actually only going to do one sleeve at a time. I'm not going to cut both of them off. I know that I'll end up doing things wrong, so I'd rather be safe than sorry, and I'll do one sleeve at a time. So there's our full sleeve, and we've got a couple of pleats in here as well, and I want to keep that same pleat in the sleeve. Fortunately, there are a couple of really good creases in there, so I can make sure that I apply that when I shorten this. It just so happens that the lady wants a full cuff length off, so I just need to measure my cuff. That's 3 inches or 7.5 centimetres, and that's what I'm going to be taking off here. So I'll just line up my ruler along the end of the sleeve, make my marks. I don't like to cut off all in one go. I would rather cut all the way around. So there's our cuff and our shortened sleeve. And it's a good thing I didn't cut all the way around just in one go, because there's a little strap on the inside here. Had I done that and just gone and cut straight across, I may have actually cut that off. So I do always like to put my hand on the inside. I can feel where my scissors are going as I'm cutting my fabric. Now there's still a crease here, so I'm going to fold this crease over. It's a little pleat that was already in the sleeve, so I'm going to use the existing pleat, and hopefully everything will fit in nicely in the cuff that I've got here. To reapply the cuff, I'm going to start with this section here. So that's the inside, and that's the inside of my sleeve here. I'll take this section and place that inside the cuff. And before I sew anything, I want to make sure everything lines up properly and that I've got things the right way around. This edge here will tuck in right into the very corner of the existing cuff. And you can see I've got a blue piece of piping on the inside here. That's where I'm going to line up the hem of the sleeve. So there's a good 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch hem on that sleeve just there, which is what was in there in the first place. You may need to open this up just a little bit more just to make it easier for you to be able to fit that fabric in on the very edge there. But the less we have to open up, the better. And I'll do the same for the other side just to make it easier to work with. If you don't have double-sided tape, you'll need to pin this really well and line it up as best you can as well, so that it still looks like it was professionally made. And then you can just follow the seam line. Keep on pinning the shirt sleeve all the way down along here on the inside section of your cuff. I'm going to use the double-sided tape that I like to use. So if I run some double-sided tape down along here, the job is going to be a lot quicker. There's going to be less rippling and bubbling, and the fabric will sit nice and straight, and I can sew it a lot quicker as well, which is a win for the customer. They don't have to pay so much for my time. You can go and pin this in place, or if you have the double-sided tape that you all know that I love to use, go and use that instead. It's so much better. The brand that I use is So Easy, so it's a wash-away quilter's tape. This one's 8mm or 5/16 of an inch. This is what I've been using for years. So Easy wash-away quilter's tape. So what I will do is run the tape along that binding on the inside of the cuff there. And this will just make my job much easier. I've got my sleeve inside out and the inside section of my cuff facing down. And I'm going to take this section here, so this is inside out, and that's going to come to this end here. I'll secure the fabric to the tape and make sure that the pleats that I've got in here are also secured down as well. Once I've gone part way, I'm going to go to the other end and secure that in place as well. And then I can start manipulating this so that the fabric lines up nice and evenly. And I can adjust those pleats if need be. I've turned the shirt back the right way out, and I've got the sleeve lined up nicely along here. It's sitting nice and flat underneath and along the top, but I've still got excess fabric here from the pleat. The other thing too is that with shirt sleeves, the fabric has tapered as you come down the length of the arm. The original cuff has actually got a slight taper going down, so it means it's got less fabric, which means that here I'm going to have extra fabric. Where these pleats were, I'm actually just going to make them a little bit bigger to enable that fabric to fit. So the pleats will be in exactly the same place, but I'll just manipulate that fabric so that the pleat is a little bit bigger and that the shirt will sit nicer. I've created a bigger pleat, so it's same place, just a little bit bigger, and that will enable this to sit nice and flat. And I've just put some double-sided tape over that as well, just to help it sit in place. And then I can take that tape off and secure this to the top. I think that's looking nice like that. It's a nice little pleat, just in the same spot that it was before, and everything else is sitting nice and flat. So now that I've done that, I can comfortably go and cut off the other sleeve, put the cuff on in the same manner, and that way I know that I haven't got my cuffs mixed up. I'll take it to the machine once I've done both sleeves, and then I can stitch everything down in one go. To use the seam ripper, all you need to do is open up the first couple of stitches and then take the ball of your seam ripper and place that underneath the layers of fabric, or place that inside the layers of fabric, and then start ripping along the stitches. You just want to make sure the point of your ripper isn't digging into any of the fabric. Go slow when you first start until you get the hang of it. If you use one with a sharp blade on that curve, you're going to be able to glide through those stitches easily. Whereas if you use a blunt one, you're going to be pushing and end up causing more damage. I'll run that double-sided tape along the inside again. Just neaten it all up and make sure you've got rid of all the loose stitches. And this is why you check your work before you do any sewing at all. I've gone and put the cuff in upside down. So let's undo all of that and place it on the right way. And that's why this double-sided tape is so good. Okay, so that is all ready now to take to the machine and sew in place. When I take this to the machine, I'm going to stitch it from the top because obviously the outside is the part that matters the most. All I need to do is one row of top stitching all the way around. With this sleeve, it's exactly the same. I just have to remove the cuff and shorten the sleeve by the same width of the cuff. That's not going to leave much of an opening here at all, but that's what the customer wants. So that's fine. That just means my job is a lot easier. So this one is a little bit more awkward because I'm using white. What I would normally do if I can't tell the right way from the wrong way is I'd put a mark on the wrong side of the fabric. I'm not actually going to be removing this button, so I can actually use the stitching from the button just as a reminder as to which is inside and which is the outside. That'll stop me from making any silly mistakes. At least that's my plan anyway. Okay, I now have both shirts ready to go. I've double checked that the button and the button stitching are on the correct sides so that I've got my cuffs on in the right orientation and everything's good to go. So now that I've done all of that, I can take this to the machine. So the hardest part about any alterations are the processes that you have to go through just to get your stitching done. The stitching will only take me a few minutes. And now it's the fun part. We get to sew it all up and finish the job. One down and one to go. All I did with the pink one was the stitches that I had pulled out before are the stitches that I've replaced. So I'm basically following the holes that have been left in the fabric from the previous stitching line. One of the best things about working with this double-sided tape is that there are no pins in place here at all. And working with white fabric, I can guarantee you 99% of the time I'll prick myself. It's not going to happen on here, so I'm not going to spoil the fabric. And there we are, all done. The cuffs have been stitched back on and you wouldn't even know that the job had been done. So I'm pretty happy with that. Well, I'm always glad when these jobs are finished. They're not really part of the alteration service that I like to do, only because they're a little bit time consuming with all the unpicking and then placing everything back together again. But once I'm done, I'm always happy with them. 2 shirts finished for the lady. It took me 1.5 hours or 90 minutes to do both of the shirts. About 1.25 hours of the work involved here was the unpicking and the repositioning of the sleeve to the cuff. So the sewing time, 10 to 15 minutes, and it was done. Probably took me longer to change threads between shirts. For my alteration service, I charge $45 an hour. That covers an Australian labour rate. So I think that might be about $25 an hour for a seamstress of some sort. And then I add things like taxes and power and thread and machine maintenance and all of those little hidden costs. So I've just pulled a figure out of my head and I charged myself out at $45 an hour. When I quoted this, I did say to the lady that it would probably take me at least an hour for each shirt, so she knew that it was going to be about $45 per shirt. I always like to overquote because that scares people off sometimes and then they don't give me the job to do. It's terrible, isn't it? I have so much sewing to do that if a person would rather not have a job done with me, I'm fine with that. But anyway, she was fine with me charging that. I've already messaged her. She'll be happy that it's come to a total of $60 for the 2 shirts and not $90 like she'd originally anticipated. So I'm glad that job's done. I've had people requesting more alterations videos. Most of what I do is hems, so they're very simple to do. And I have done a couple of hemming videos. If there's a particular alterations video that you would actually like me to do, let me know. And if the job comes in, I'll bring it home and show you how I go about doing them. If you have a job like this to do and you don't have the confidence, I recommend going to thrift stores or op shops and just picking up a cheap shirt for 50 cents or $1, pulling it to bits and then trying to put it back together again. In the 10 years that I've been doing alterations for people, I've learnt more from the reverse sewing of a garment than I ever did in a lifetime of dressmaking and pattern making. Certainly worth having a go and pulling apart your garments or just buying something really cheap. When they don't fit you anymore, pull them apart, put them back together again and see what you learn from it. As I said, I've learnt more from reverse sewing than I have from any other kind of sewing that I've done in my lifetime. Hope you've enjoyed this video and I shall catch you next time. Bye for now.